There we go. Got it. Tape is running.
Okay, so this is a 4-minute trailer that I'm creating for a 3-hour training that I'm creating on unmasking the mystery of the mask. What we're going to be talking about tonight is just a layer mask, but there's over half a dozen types of masks in Photoshop that you can talk about. And we'll talk a little bit about that after this trailer. I do have a free, like I said, 20-minute version of this. I'm going to be posting sometime before the end of the year, hopefully. And then the training will be available sometime next year because I'm still in the process of working on it. But let me start the trailer and then we'll start the presentation. Let me know if you guys can hear the audio. Can y'all hear that?
Yes.
It's off, but yeah.
Have you ever wanted to learn Photoshop but thought it was too complex to learn? Well, this short tutorial was designed with you in mind. This training module is part 1 of a multi-part series on Photoshop Essentials Made Easy. In this tutorial, I will use wrap to showcase several principles of the 3 most essential concepts that you would need to learn in Photoshop: selections, masks, and layers. If you master these 3 concepts, you are only limited by your imagination what you can do with greater ease and without having to resort to other resources to accomplish any task in Photoshop. Share this video with your family, your friends, your enemies, your co-workers, your neighbors, your in-laws, and your outlaws. This statement brings us to rule number 2 of math. Wrap it with me now. Black conceals, white reveals. When creating most mask types in Photoshop, the golden rule you may have learned in many books or training is black conceals and white reveals. However, the problem for most beginners is, what is the it that it conceals or reveals? Well, it depends upon the type of mask that is being applied. In this training module, I will discuss the layer mask, which is one of the easiest and most used of over half a dozen types of masks in Photoshop. So using the current project, press the eye icon on the blank layer to hide that layer. Click the picture frame layer, press the add layer mask icon at the bottom of the layers panel to add a layer mask to the selected layer and let the magic begin. Now you can see the image of the beautiful lady below the picture frame layer. Notice the selected area became white and the non-selected area became black on the layer mask thumbnail in the layers panel. Now note on the canvas, the black areas of the mask conceal the portion of the image pixels, making them transparent, denoted by the checkerboard pattern, so that those pixels are hit to reveal pixels of the underlying layer, whereas the white area of the thumbnail mask reveals the portion of the image pixel, making them opaque, so that those pixels are seen. Since the bottom layer was made into a smart object, you can easily switch out the image without doing all of the steps that was done earlier again. Right-click the background layer and select Replace Content from the menu. In the Replace File dialog box that appears, navigate to an image and then click the Place button. Press Command and Control plus T and scale and position the image to fit the picture frame as desired. Press the Enter or Return key or double-click the image to commit the transformation. That was wow. Spell it backwards. Wow. In closing, you have learned several vital principles of selection, mask, and layers from wraps. Moreover, you learned 3 golden rules of selection, mask, and layers. Practice these techniques on your projects, and in no time, you too will be wrapping the golden rule of all 3 golden rules of selection, mask, and layers. The selection mask or layer that is selected is the only one that gets affected. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more videos like this one. Click the link below for a free copy of my ebook. Thanks for watching and have a great day. And remember the rap, the more you learn, the more you may earn. So there you have it. Let me see if I can get out of this.
That's applause you're hearing.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was fun.
Okay. All right, so let's get started. So what we're going to be talking about is one type of layer mask today, and that is the layer mask. Like many applications, Photoshop is a complex application, and once we, the thing is, once we learn to do a few techniques, we all been guilty of having a tendency of continuing those techniques without realizing that sometimes there are more efficient ways of doing the same thing that can save us both time and frustration. So in this module, we're going to kind of unlock a portion of the mystery of the mask, in this case, layer mask. Now notice I use the term mask, singular, and not plural, because the reason is that all masks, regardless of their type, whether it's electronic mask like Photoshop mask, alpha channel mask, quick mask, layer mask, gradient mask, to name a few, or even real world masks, face mask, gas mask, masquerade mask, any kind of mask, regardless of its type, they all do basically the same three things. They show, hide, and protect what they are masking, okay? The key though in unlocking the mystery, at least one of the keys to unlocking the mystery of the mask is knowing what they show, hide, or protect, okay? Once you discover that, knowing about masks, using masks becomes child's play, as it were. So with that thought in mind, let's switch over to Photoshop, and we're going to get started with some examples to illustrate this. Again, we're going to be only talking about one type of mask in this training, and that is the layer mask. Okay, and a layer mask is a mask for a layer. Okay, so we'll see that in time. But one of the things that we're going to be looking at, let me just see if I can highlight a layer mask in my notes here, is what is a layer mask? Well, a layer mask is basically.
Cornelius?
Yeah.
I still see the RMCS Learning Made Easy screen. I'm not sure if that's what we're supposed to see. Like the
no,
beginning?
you should be seeing a Word document. You don't see a Word document?
No, we see.
I'm glad you
I see
mentioned
the last frame of the video.
Okay, yeah. Well, let me get back to the Zoom. Let's see, what's the Zoom thing?
It's actually a video control panel at the bottom.
Okay, yeah, but
of the screen as well. Just so you understand what we're seeing.
Okay, let me stop sharing, I guess, and then
I'm sure we can edit
again.
Sure, okay. We can edit out this portion of
no, what I did was I do this oftentimes. I share a application instead of sharing my desktop. So when you do the desktop, you should see everything. So now let me do my desktop. Now,
oh, there you go.
Do you see Photoshop?
Wonderful, wonderful, yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad you mentioned that. And if I toggle to Word, do you see Word?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm glad you caught that. But you guys didn't miss anything because I was just talking. So basically a layer mask is simply a bitmap image. That's all it is. It's not, take the mystery out of the mask, if you will. A layer mask is a mask for a layer. And we're going to see that in time. But it's basically just a black and white, for the most part, sometimes gray image that is used to show or hide pixels, not a selection. Now, some masks will show hide selection. Some masks will show hide effects, right? So knowing what they show or hide is the key to unlocking the mystery. Now, with a layer mask, they basically just show and hide pixels. If you get that down, that's 90% of knowing about any kind of mask. And a layer mask is one of the easiest. Again, there's at least over half a dozen types of masks in Photoshop, but the layer mask is one of the easiest masks to create and use, and it's the most versatile of all image-based masks. Now there's some vector-based masks as well, right? And they work similar to the image-based masks. So if you had to pick one type of mask to learn, the layer mask be the one. In fact, most masks, as you'll see in time, is basically a layer mask with a twist, okay? And again, there's a whole host of mask types that you can use. And there's various ways of creating a mask. You can create a mask from a selection, you can do the reveal all, you can do the hide all, you can create it from a transparency. And then there's different ways to see the mask. I'm going to show you some examples of how to see the mask once you've created, and how also to delete it. So with that in mind, let's click over to Photoshop. And can you guys see that? Photoshop?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start off with a simple example, and then we're going to move into the heart of the training, and that is we're going to create a magazine cover of sort, if you will. Well, let's start with a simple example, just kind of illustrate some of the concepts that we've learned from that trailer, as well as what I just mentioned. So right here, I have just a background layer, and then I have a text layer on top, okay? And what I want to do is get a selection of this text layer. So in order to do that, you can hold on the Command or Control key and click on the thumbnail of the text. And this is true of most thumbnails. If you could find yourself a thumbnail and click on it, and you can get a selection of the object, okay? Life is easy. There's a lot of ways to make selection, but believe me, that's one of the easiest ways to create a selection is find a thumbnail and click on it, and you probably get a selection from it. So let's just do that. I'm holding on the Command key or the Control key and click on that thumbnail, and you can see the marching ants, right, around the text. Well, let me just turn off that text layer because I really don't need it. I just needed the selection from that layer. Now, one thing about selections, and again, in one of my training, I talk about a selection. Once it's defined, you can create it on any layer. It was created on this layer, right? But once it's defined, it's available to all layers, but it's going to only affect the last layer selected. What happens oftentimes is, particularly for beginners, they make a selection and they inadvertently add a layer mask onto the wrong layer. And let's do that. Again, this is teaching by mistake, if you will. This is what not to do. Okay, so watch what happens when I try to add a layer mask to this particular layer. I'm gonna click on the layer mask icon down at the bottom. If you guys see that, add layer mask, tooltip show up. If you click on it, let the magic begin. Bam. Well, nothing seemed to happen, right? Something did happen, but you can't see it because this layer is turned off. So let me turn this layer on, and I'm gonna turn this layer off, and you can see that it did mask that particular layer. It hid the background and showed the text, right? Not too pretty, but it did what it was intended to do. Not what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna do a Command Control Z to undo that, and let's do it the correct way, okay? So I'm gonna do Control Z again to get back to our original text layer and our background layer. Now, with the selection still intact, let's create a layer mask. Now, really easy to create a layer mask. Again, it's typically you want to have a selection with a layer mask. You don't always have to have one, but typically you have a selection by whatever means, and then you create the layer mask from it. Now watch what happens when I click on the layer mask this time, but I'm gonna be careful not to do it on this layer because it would apply a layer mask to this layer, which is not what I want. I want it to apply it to this layer. Now again, the rule to remember is that once a selection is made, it's available to all layers, but will only affect the last layer selected. The Chopinism for that is the last layer selected is the only layer that gets affected. Okay, and that's true in most cases. So with this last layer,
may I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
When you say the last layer selected, do you mean in terms of when you last selected it even if it's at the bottom or the top, or is it the one that's directly below the layer that you want to apply?
Whichever one. If I create some, let me create some additional layers. Let's say I had 10
Okay.
layers, right? Whichever layer I select, see that's highlighted right there. That's that's the layer that's going to get affected by what I do next.
I see. Of course. Okay.
Okay.
And then the other question is the text selection, is that a vector or a bitmap?
The text is typically a vector format. It's a specialized, let me say that, vector format.
I thought it was. I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure
and
because you
we're
were
gonna
talking
see that-
about layer
yeah.
masks being pixel
Yeah,
based.
it's a specialized vector format because you can retype another text on top of that and get a new word, right? But we're going to show you later how to convert it from a text to actual bitmap format so that we can use it to paint on it or to erase from it. And we're going to look at that in the next exercise.
Can I add a short comment to that, Cornelius?
Yeah.
The text layers in Photoshop, in the way I see it, is the text is definitely vector, and like Cornelius pointed out, you can edit it like normal text, and you can also scale it up or down using point sizes, and they will not reduce the resolution. But on the screen or in the image, Photoshop will always render those vectors as pixels.
Correct.
Which is the whole point of Photoshop. So just to add some depth to that.
Yeah, everything in the end gets rendered as pixels, right? Because you're dealing with a pixel-based program, unlike Illustrator, which is primarily a vector-based program. Now they both do both, right? But Photoshop is primarily a bitmap program. You can't do vectors, whereas Illustrator is primarily a vector-based program, but you can bring in an image, right? So yeah, they do both, but one is primarily bitmap, one is primarily a vector. And we'll see an example of that in a bit. Anyway, I have this layer selected, so it's going to be the layer that gets affected. Now, watch what happens when I apply a layer mask this time. Bam. Notice it applied a layer mask to that layer. Again, a layer mask, again, this is not rocket science, for crying out loud, is a mask for a layer. Okay, I always like to, if you got a compound word, I tell my students, just reverse it to get the definition of it. So a layer mask is a mask for a layer. You know, when I'm teaching on database, my students ask me all the time, what is a record set? I say a record set is a set of records. Okay, so a layer mask is basically a mask. You can see a mask. Again, remember what a mask can do. It can show, hide, and protect what's underneath it. So let's talk about that. And we saw it in the demo. Remember the golden rule, and I know most of you guys know it by now, for crying out loud, because you've heard me say at least 1,000 times if you've been in the Adobe Users Group. Black conceals, white reveals. How many times you've heard me say that? How many? A lot, right? Black conceals, white reveals. The problem, though, for most beginners is that what does it conceal or what does it reveal? Okay, well, it depends upon the type of mask that's being used. Okay, if it's a layer mask, it's going to conceal or reveal pixels. In other type masks, it conceals or reveals other types of things like effects, adjustment layers, selections, and the like. And that's part of my training that I'm creating, unlocking the mystery of the mask. But they all show, hide, and protect something. Knowing what they show, hide, and protect is the key to unlocking that mystery. And I say that several times because that's an important concept to keep in mind. In fact, that freed me because I'm thinking, man, they got all of these layers, all these different types of masks, man, I'm confused about it, right? And then when I got that revelation of what they were showing and hiding different things, it freed me to know what a layer mask or any other kind of mask can do without much fuss. Now, let's look at this. Remember the golden rule, black conceals, white reveals. Well, black conceals what? It pixels. Notice the pixels in this layer are hidden. It conceals pixels so it makes that area of the image transparent, right? Then noted by the checkerboard pattern that you see. And most of you guys know that checkerboard means transparency, right? Black conceals, white reveals. Well, areas where it's white on this mask is right here. It reveals those pixels in those areas
of the image. So black conceals, hide pixels, making them transparent. White will reveal, making them opaque so that those pixels can be seen. Now, you can see the mask if I click on here. Let me see here. It's a little bit different, I believe, on a Mac. Okay, I'm hiding it. I need to figure out what the key, but there's a key where I can show the canvas, the mask, a bigger version of this on a canvas, which is basically just a larger version of that black and white thumbnail that you see there. I don't know how to do it on a Mac. I know on a PC you can do it easily.
You do shift click? Isn't it shift click?
Shift click?
I thought it was. Oh no, that's the
So
hiding.
that disables it.
It's got to be option click. Then. I mean, how many keys combinations?
Okay, there you go. You're right. There's option click. Okay, and that's the mask right there. Again, black conceals, white reveals. So area that is black will be transparent. Area that is white will be shown, or opaque, right? Now, again, I'm gonna option click that again to go back to the regular mask. Now I'm gonna do Command or Control D to deselect, and then I'm gonna apply a layer style. Now don't confuse layer style with layer mask. A layer mask is a mask. A layer style is akin to, if you will, CSS. You know, you had cascading style sheets, right? You can style text and image or whatever. Well, this is a Photoshop version of CSS, if you will. Now, easy way to get to the layer style icon, or dialog box rather, is to simply double click on a layer and you pull up this layer style, not layer mask, layer style dialog box. That's one way of doing it. Another way is you can select it from the list down at the bottom here and select whatever layer style that you want. In this case, let's say a drop shadow. And a lot of people like to adjust the drop shadows from within the dialog box. I prefer just to go on a canvas and you can pull that drop shadow wherever you want, just by dragging it on the canvas itself, which I think is cool. Okay, and then we're going to add a bevel. So if I click on Bevel and Emboss, notice it gave me a bevel and emboss, and you can change that to whatever. I like the chisel hard bevel. You can change it to, you know, whatever you want. But I'm adding style. Now the style will be applied to the whole layer. This has nothing to do with the mask, right? It's just the style for the mask. Just like you have styles for text in HTML, right? You can style your mask, as it were. And we'll see more example of that in a bit. Okay, so let me click OK to commit that. And I could turn these effects on and off. You see, they just attached to that layer. They're not part of the layer. They're just attached to the layer. Again, just like with CSS, you can delete it at any time. And the content is still there, right? I mean, as we often say, content is always king. So let's do something else. So let's make this interesting. What if I wanted to invert the mask? Because oftentimes you might make a mistake in creating the wrong type of mask, and you might have to invert the mask. So let's invert this mask and see what we get. Now, the way to invert a mask is hold on the Command or Control key and click on I for invert. So I'm gonna hold on the Command key and I'm gonna click on the I. Oh, now, I made a mistake, Control Z, by inverting the wrong thing. What I did was I inverted the image, which is not what you want to do. In this case, I want to invert the mask. So when you create a layer mask, notice they're going to be linked together, okay? And you got to make sure that you select, because golden rule, you know it, is only what's selected
It's affected
by what you do next. Okay, y'all should know that by now. Okay, so don't mistakenly or inadvertently select the image, select the mask. Remember, a layer mask is a mask for the layer, okay? So now that I have the mask selected, now I'm gonna hit the Command or Control on the Mac, and voila. Notice it inverted. Remember, it was black and white, now it's white and black right here. You see that? because it inverted what was black became white and what was white became black. So it inverted the mask. Now, let's go a step further, if you will. What I want to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. So I'm going to do Command and Control J. You guys know that. And I am going to delete the, to move this out my way. I'm going to delete the this text off this bottom layer because I want that bottom layer to show through. Because see, this is transparent right here, and I see it's showing through, but I want to make that black and white. So I'm going to add an adjustment layer, which is yet another layer type, right? That you can add to an object, but I want to add an adjustment layer of black and white. Add that. And what I did was I made the mistake of applying it to the wrong layer. Remember, I told you the last layer selected is the one that get affected. Well, I made the mistake by selecting this layer. I want to select this layer in essence, right? Now let's do that again. I'm gonna do a black and white and watch what happens. So what's behind there, let me just turn this layer off so you can see indeed that the whole layer is black and white. And notice it still have the bevel because there's a bevel applied to this. I could drag and drop that to the trash because it's not really needed. But that adjustment layer, which is yet another one of the half a dozen types of masks that you can create in Photoshop, has been added to that layer. And everything is now black and white for this object. Now, with a adjustment layer, it's on top of the mask, whereas a layer mask is on the same layer. And again, you see that and you learn that over time. Some layer masks is on a layer by themselves, on a layer, and others are going to be on top, and some even are at the bottom of the layer. So it depends upon the type of mask is where that thumbnail or that layer, that mask, if you will be shown. So I'm going to turn that back on, and now you can see that it's almost looked like this thing been cut out, as it were, showing the background, same background image, but in black and white. Okay, so that's a simple example of using a layer mask. And again, I could turn this effect off right here, and then you could have something like that. Okay, so you kind of, you're only limited by your imagination with masking. So that's a simple example. Let's look at a more creative example, a more advanced example that I loved to do. And that is when you're creating new masks and you're duplicating them and all that fun stuff. So let's look at another one that I think is going to be fun. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Okay, now I have an image here of a model, right? And I have some other, let me just turn on all the images to show you just initially. Now you don't see this image because it's hidden behind that image, right? So I got this light streak, if you will. I got this text right here, free copy. I got text, fashion, and I got the model itself and a background layer. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off all of these layers except the model layer. Okay, the layer that's selected will be the one that get affected. Now I want to create a layer mask. Okay, again, if you click this layer mask right now, notice it create a completely white mask. The reason for that is because there's no selection. So, because what's selected, guess what? Gets affected by the mask. Another way to create a mask is if you go up to the layer panel and do layer, you could do reveal all. And notice it also create a completely, an emphasis on the word completely, white mask. You guys see that? I'm gonna do Control Z to undo that. Let's do it again. But this time, I'm gonna select hide all. So hide all will be a what kind of mask? It'll be a completely white, black mask, right? Remember, black conceals.
White reveals.
There you go. So watch what happens when I do that. It hides everything, and rightly so, because it's a completely black mask. And the reason for doing that, that's another training in itself, right? I have a whole slew of stuff to show you why you would want to do, because and when I first started with this, why would you want to do a completely black mask or a completely white mask? There are reasons to do that, but not this training. This is beyond the scope of this training on why you do that, but you can. And my training is going to provide avenues to do that. I'm going to drag that mask to the trash and delete it and get back my image. Now, let's create a selection, because most masks, 90% of masks typically starts with a selection, because the golden rule is what's selected gets affected, right? So let's add a selection. Now, you can select this model by whatever means you need to. You can use a quick mask, you can trace it, you can draw around it, whatever you do. I need a selection by whatever means, okay? So I'm gonna make a selection. I'm gonna use the quick mask tool. Now, and I could swipe in here and make a selection, but in the newer version of Photoshop, and I love this technique, you have this option of select subject. You guys see that? How sweet is that? Okay, now, again, you need to be on the right layer for that particular option to be selected. For example, if I'm on a text layer, notice it's dimmed out, because on a text layer, you don't have a subject, right? You have text, right? So it can't select a subject on a text layer. So you need to be on the right layer in order for certain items to be affected. So I'm gonna select the model layer, and with the quick select tool selected, I'm gonna click on the select subject and let the magic begin. Bam, just that fast, it selected that model. Now it missed a few parts there. It missed the shoe, so I'm gonna just add a shoe in. I'm gonna just click here, and I'm gonna hold down the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac, and I'm gonna subtract out what I don't need. Now, how many of you with a little effort do you think you can do that? Okay, so again, once you get a selection, now you can create the layer mask. So let's create the layer mask. Notice there's no mask right here currently, right? Watch what happened. How many of you with a little effort think you can do this? Click on this little button down at the bottom here. You think with a little training, you can do that? I'm being sarcastic, okay? Watch this. Okay, bam. Just that easy, I've created a layer mask. And you know the rules: black conceals, white reveals. Black area conceal, hide pixels, making them transparent, right? White will reveal to show pixels, right? Now, so because this is transparent, denoted by the checkerboard pattern, that's just symbolic of letting you know that this is transparent. If it was pure white, you wouldn't know it was transparent. So that's just a symbol that is transparent. And I'm sure most of you guys know that in most application about transparency. So since it is transparent, let's add a background so we can see if there's something, we can see what's in the back. So I'm gonna turn on the background layer right here, bam. Now you can see that layer shows through it. Now, if I hold down a Shift key and turn off this mask, you can see it hides that layer behind it, right? I turn up mask off temporarily. If I click again, it turns it back on, right? So you can show and hide, if you will, the mask by holding down the Shift key and clicking on the mask thumbnail, not the image, but the mask thumbnail to disable it temporarily. Okay, now we got the background. Let's do some text. So I'm gonna add this text on top, and I want to erase. Obviously, it's covering her face. We wouldn't want that to happen, right? So I can't use my brush tool. You can click the BT if you the B for brush, and you can try to erase, if you will. Let me go to mine. Make sure I'm on the right layer, because I want to erase this this area right here. Well, because it's text, kind of going to what Karen was saying earlier, I can't erase it. No, I get that no can do sign, right? So I got the brush tool selected, but when I try to erase or paint, in fact, let me just, I don't want the brush tool, I want the eraser tool actually. Even with the eraser tool, I can't paint or I can't erase. That's what you do, by the way, on a mask. You can paint or erase it. They basically work the same way. Pick your tool of choice, if you will. You can use the brush, or you can use the eraser to either paint or erase content as needed. So I can't paint. So what I need to do is convert that text layer to a bitmap layer. So let's do that. So first of all, I'm gonna create a new layer like so, right? So that's a new layer. And then I want to get the selection. I don't need this layer. I just need the selection from the layer, right? Again, you guys know how to do that. Hold on the control key and click on that thumbnail. Again, find yourself a thumbnail to work with. Click on that thumbnail, bam. I got a selection. Now I'm gonna turn this layer off so you can see the selection better. You see, indeed I have a selection, right? Now, I don't want this layer to be affected. I want this layer to be affected, so I need to make sure it's selected. Now with that layer selected, I want to fill it with black. Now notice I have my foreground set to black. You can hit the D key to toggle from black and white to the black and white if it's in color. And then you can hit the X key to toggle between foreground and background. I want the foreground to be black, and then I'm holding the Option key or the Alt key on the Mac, and then I mean the Option key or the Alt key on the PC, and hit the Delete key, and that's going to fill the selection. Quick way of filling the selection with the foreground color. Okay, so I filled it with the foreground color, and do Command D to deselect so you can see that text better. Now this is a text-based layer. This is a vector-based layer. That's why I couldn't paint on it, right? Now, if I use my eraser tool, hit the E for eraser, I'll go over to the eraser panel tool rather, right here. And then I could try, and the emphasis on here is try. It's hard to erase because I can't see behind her. So it's hard for me to erase, I got to, try to estimate. And if I make a mistake, I have to do Command Z to undo it. So it's kind of hard to erase this thing accurately. Now, it's not a big deal because our hair is black and it kind of matches the background of that text. But if it wasn't, this would be hard to do. And I would constantly have to go, Command Z, Command and Control Z to undo it. Now, the problem with that is when you got a text like this and you're using the eraser tool, you're destroying the image, right? What we call destructive, right? We always, golden rule of Photoshop, you should always strive to be non-destructive. Never destroy. Huh?
Yeah, thank you. I agree 110%.
Okay, you should always strive to be non-destructive. Now watch what happens when I use my move tool. That's the V key. You notice the move tool gets selected. And I move it, you can see that it was indeed erased, right? But I destroy that layer, if you will, because I literally erased the pixels from it. Not what I want to do. So I'm gonna do Control Z to undo that. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete this because not what you want to do. You typically don't want to be destroying things. So let's just drag that. Now, there's two ways to delete a layer. One way is to right click and hit delete layer. But that pulls up a dialog box and you got to click yes or no, right? I'm gonna click no to show you an easier way, at least my preferred way of doing it. If you drag the layer to the trash can, or as one lady infamously said, the cupcake, she thought that was a cupcake, and I've been using that ever since. So if you drag the layer to the cupcake, actually the trash can, it automatically, and that's my favorite word, you guys know, automatically delete the layer without having to prompt you with a dialog box. Again, that's me. If you want to, you do the other way, that's fine. I prefer just dragging. I'm a drag and drop type person. I always like to just drag and drop stuff to get rid of it. Okay, so I drag to the trash can and it disappears. Now, the question then is, how do I get that? Let me turn the text layer back on. It's still above the model, right? I want to get it behind her to make it like a magazine cover. You see magazine cover with the text behind the person. Well, how do I get it behind her? Well, this is a layer, right? And this is a layer, right? Well, this text is above both of these layers. What I could do is just drag and drop it in between what we call a technical term, sandwich it between the two layers. Bam, just that easy. I've sandwiched that text. Now I can move it anywhere without much fuss, and it's still editable. I mean, I could change that word to whatever other word I want, right? It's just basically sandwiched between these two layers. But what if I wanted to say, what if I wanted to use the original image again? So let's go back to the original image. So I'm gonna turn off this layer temporarily. I'm gonna do Control Shift. And when I turn it off, what happens? It hides my text layer because it's no longer being masked, right? So I'm gonna drag this thing back up to the top so you can see it, and I'm gonna use my move tool to move it back up. And the question then is, how can I have this text behind this model without sandwiching it? Okay, that's where layer mask comes in handy. Okay, now yeah, you can create layers, you know, and the sandwich method works, right? You saw that it indeed works. That's employing a technique that I'm fond of called fake it till you can make it, right? But you should always strive to make your content, you know, use mask for your content, because there's a lot of magic, as we'll see, to masking. That's a title. I'm gonna have to use that. Okay. There's a lot of magic to masking, and we'll see a few of that in just a minute. Okay, so how do I get the text behind that model without sandwiching it in between the two layers that we did earlier? Well, let's use a layer mask. And I don't have to recreate the mask. I already have a mask. I have a mask right here. So watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drag this mask to the text mask, to the text layer rather, and voila. Now, that doesn't look too pretty right now, but hold on. What I did is I've masked the text. Now, if I turn these other layers, you can see kind of actually what's happening. I'm turning off those other layers so you can see that the text is being masked by, remember, black conceals, so that's why it's hidden over here. White reveals, that's why it's shown right here. So my question to you guys, somebody answer, you get 5 brownie points, maybe 10. I'll give you 10 points for this. What do I need to do so I can show the rest of the text? Somebody holler out.
I want to have a guess, but I would like others to have a guess first.
Okay, somebody, what do I need to do to show the rest of the text? Because it's masking it, but it's not masking the way I want it to.
Invert
Right, because
the
I'm
mask.
using this model mask on my text layer.
Please invert the mask.
Invert the mask. And remember how to do that. Command and Control.
Come on, Command I.
Okay, make sure the mask is selected, otherwise you're going to invert the text. Command Control I, bam. There you have it. Okay, now again, you can see that it's being black conceals, right? See the black here concealed, so it's hiding it here. White revealed, so it's showing the rest of the text for that layer. Now let me just turn on these other layers so you can kind of get back to seeing that. Again, this thing here is just on top of that, giving the illusion that it's behind it, but it's just being masked, if you will. It's not actually behind it. You can see that. It's still up front. It's just being masked with the cutout, as it were, right? Now, let's take this a step further and do something else. Let me see what else I want to do. What if now, let me see if I can move this. Yeah, so you see here, I had the same problem though that I had when I erased that area. Remember when I used the eraser, right? I'm having the same problem because what if I wanted to make this dynamic? How would I do that? Anybody have an idea of how I can make this text where if I move it, I'm not getting this right here. I'm getting the actual text. How can I do that without much fuss? Real easy techniques.
I have a suggestion, but please let others guess first.
Anybody else want to guess first? How do I move that text without creating this effect?
Well, there's a little link symbol between the text layer icon and
right.
Yeah, that little guy.
Okay, you get 10 brownie points for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the key there is when you create a layer mask, it's linked to the image. And so when you move the image, notice that now you can't see the text, it's not moving, but you can see that the mask moved it too, right? So they move in unison, if you will. So I'm gonna do Control or Command Z to undo that. I'm gonna unlock that. This mask is static. I want to move the text. Now watch what happens now when I move the text. Look, I can move the text behind that image, giving the illusion anyway, right? It's not behind that image. It's just being masked by that image. You guys get that? That was good. That's fresh off the press right there.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
I like that. Okay, it's not being masked. Okay, it's not behind that image. It's being masked by that image. That's cool. I'm going to write that in my notes. Okay. Now, so let's move that back up, and we're going to take this a step even further. So what if I wanted to? I changed my mind. I said, man, I really like that gradient background because it pops, right? So how can I get my gradient background back? Anybody? How do I get my gradient background back?
Add a gradient mask.
Yeah, okay. How would I do that? Let me say, let me be more specific.
If you choose add mask, doesn't it offer you a choice of different kinds of masks?
Well, if you select this layer and then click down here, is that what you want me to do? That's going to remember.
Yes, I think so.
That, well, that's
that just creates it.
That because there's no selection. Remember, you always have to have a selection. Now, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you a trick of the trade, if you will. I'm going to hold down the Alt key or the Option key. I'm going to drag the mask to that layer. So this is a copy. See that? I don't know if you guys can see. See the little black and white arrow? That's your dead giveaway that you're about to duplicate that object. In this case, that mask to this layer. I'm going to let it go. And now I duplicated a mask, but the gradient is inside of the model. But I want it to be in the background. In fact, if I turn this thing off, not this, but let me turn off the mask. Which one? I want to turn off this bottom layer. You can see I basically just cut that out. So I'm actually seeing behind this particular layer. I want to show this as the background and then show my model. How do I do that?
It is somewhat similar to what we did before. So why don't you invert the model layer mask?
Another 10 brownies. You on top of it, Tom.
I'm going to be stuffed with brownies today.
Okay. Now,
I love your presentation, by the way. So
okay, pay attention though. Look, you got white on black, right? Okay. What I need to do is, because remember I inverted this one. That's the reason why this didn't work when I dragged it down here. If I didn't invert it, it would work. But because I inverted it, I need to invert it back. Okay. So I'm going to select what I want to affect. Hit the Command or Control, hit I, and let the magic begin. Bam, I'm back in business. Now I have the best of both worlds. I have this text, let me just turn it on, being masked by the model, right? To erase this, turn this off, and I had the model being masked so I can show the background. You guys tracking it? So now I have the best of both worlds. Now notice a massive change now. This is white on black. This is black on white. You guys see that? So there are times when you need, anytime you see that it look like it's inverted, just do Command or Control I, and bam, you'll be back in business. Okay. Now let's take it a step further, because we didn't do this. Let's turn on the light streak like that. Now the problem, what's wrong with that light streak? Anybody? What's wrong with that light streak? Let's not everybody speak all at once.
It should probably like swirl around the model.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's all in front of her. It's not going behind her.
That's right. So we wanted to go behind her, right? So how do we do that? Well, we create a layer mask. Okay, so we could come over here, and now this time I'm gonna click on the layer mask because I want a completely white mask, right? You can see it right there. Remember what white does, right? White, completely white will completely reveal, right? Remember, black conceals, white reveals. So it's still showing it. Now what I can do is hit the E key, E for eraser, and I can erase, or I'm gonna hit the X key to toggle between black and white, and I can erase what I don't need. And I'm doing a little rough job here just on purpose because I'm gonna redo this in a better manner. Now notice I purposely went out of bounds right here to show you that it's actually, I'm hitting the X key again, I can paint it back in. But the problem with doing it this way is you're gonna spend a lot of time trying to get this edge together here and here and here and here. You're gonna have a hard time doing that with the trying to erase it. So let's see how to get the best of both worlds using another technique. So I'm notice the little mask right here that the black, remember, black conceals, right? It's going to hide those pixels. White reveals. That's where you see the light stroke going around it. But I want to make it easy for you to erase that without much fuss. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to do Control or Command Z several times to go back to a completely white mask. You guys see that? Now, what I'm gonna do is, remember what's selected gets affected. How many of you have heard that before? Is that something new? Or is it,
I think I heard it 3 times before.
Very familiar.
You think you have that down by now, right? Okay, so I want to select the model. Now, what I don't want to do is select this one. If I hold down the Command key and click on this one, I'm not going to get the desired results, okay? So I want to click on the model because that's the one I want to confine the selection to, okay? So watch, I'm going to click on that. Now that I have the selection confined, now the important point to remember about this is you want to add the mask first before you do this. Now watch, I'm gonna use my eraser tool. I think it's still intact. And now when I erase, look, I'm gonna hit the X key to toggle it to a different color. Now look, I could go way over here. Look, I'm painting over here. It's not gonna erase because that's not part of the selection. Only what's selected gets affected, okay? And look, I could just paint here without much fuss. I could go crazy and all over the place, right? And I'm getting the desired results by staying within the lines. Remember, as a kid, you kind of had to stay in the line. Remember those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You used to draw. You had to stay within the lines. Well, I can always stay in the line if I have a selection, and it just makes it easier for you to change it. Now you see I'm gonna do Command and Control D to deselect. Notice the light streak is like literally look like it's wrapping. You guys see that? Around the model. How cool is that?
Awesome.
Okay, so
Very cool.
now let's just, if for good measure, let's pop in, we want to give you guys a free magazine. So this is a free copy. So we got this little free copy logo, and you can move this however you want. And this is layering. This is nothing with masking. If it's on top, it's going to be on top of everything. If I move it down one layer, notice it's below the light streak, but not below the text. If I move it down again, is below the light streak and the text, okay? So layering, can act as a mask. In fact, I have a training that basically talks about everything is a mask. A selection is a mask. You saw just a minute ago, it will show, hide, protect what is being selected, right? So a selection is a mask. A layer can act as a mask. It can show, hide, and protect, as you see in that example. And obviously a mask is a mask. So everything in Photoshop can be treated as a mask. A selection can be treated as a mask. A layer can be treated as a mask. And a mask, obviously, can be treated as a mask. Okay, everything is a mask. When you learn that, I'm telling you, you can rock and roll. And that's a technical term. You can really have fun doing this. Okay. Let's look at another example. Okay, here I have a picture, and then I'm going to use my elliptical tool, and draw an ellipse. Hold on the shift key. That's how you constrain it to a perfect circle, right? You guys know that. Hold on the space bar, and that's going to allow you to move it at the same time you're drawing it. Okay, so I'm gonna hold on the space bar so I can move it while I'm drawing, and I'm gonna let go both. Now that I have a selection, I'm gonna do Command and Control J. You guys know what that does. That will pop it to the next layer. Now, you didn't see anything on the canvas because there's exact pixels in the layers below it, right? So let me just turn that layer off so you can see that indeed it was copied to a new layer. Now I'm gonna add a stroke to that image, not a heart attack, but a stroke. That's a little inside joke, you guys. Okay. So I'm gonna add a stroke. Bam. So I've added, whatever color, it doesn't really matter for this. And that's a layer style. Now remember, a layer style not to be confused with a layer mask. Okay, layer style is how you make something pretty, right? You want to just dress it up, add a drop shadow, add a bevel, do some fancy footwork. Okay, that's a layer style, and it would be applied to the entire layer or the entire mask. Okay, because remember, mask is just a bitmap image, typically black and white, sometimes gray, which is another training in itself, that shows hide or protect. Now, by the way, gray, just FYI, will partially conceal and partially reveal, depending upon the levels of gray. Okay, I'm gonna just throw that in. No charge for that, you guys. Okay, y'all not being charged anyway, so everything's free, right? Okay, so let's see what we can do with this. So now that I have this stroke on here, what I want to be able to do, now notice the stroke is not on this image, it's just an effect, so you can turn it off at will at any time. So I'm gonna add a layer mask. I do that, just click on this. I mean, with little effort, you can do that. Just click on the layer mask and you create a layer mask. Notice it's completely white, and you know the rule, completely white means completely reveal, right? Now I'm gonna use my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm gonna click and drag a little rectangular box across it, and I'm gonna fill it with black. So I'm gonna hit the X key to toggle it to black. You guys see it right there. And then I'm gonna do Option delete rather. I think it's backspace also on the PC. And then I filled it with black, and you can see the little black right there. Again, black conceals, so it's hiding those pixels. White reveals. So where it shows black conceals, white reveals. So now, watch what happens though when I unlock this and make sure the mask thumbnail, not the image thumbnail, but the mask thumbnail. You can select either one of them and move either one of them. Let's move the mask thumbnail first. And watch what happens when I move the mask. This is slicker than slime. I mean, slime is slick. Okay, look, I can move this mask. Well, let me see, am I doing that right? Control D. Okay, here we go. And I need to use the move tool. Always, anytime you want to move something, use the move tool. Can y'all remember that? Okay, at least bitmap. Okay, vector use the direct select tool to move stuff. Okay, look here. Now I can move that. Look, notice the layer style. In fact, you can do that. Look, you can get fancy, whatever you want. Notice and by the way, you can see it's being moved over here too, right? So I'm moving the mask. So you can move the mask whatever you want. By the way, you can also move the image. If I click on the image, I can move the image now. Notice the image is being moved. And again, the layer style is still intact, right? Because the layer style is attached to the entire layer. So keep that in mind. But what I like about this technique is the fact that I can literally move that mask around and create different effects. Maybe I want something like that and put a name right here. How cool would that be? Okay, or maybe
what's impressive is how the stroke rearranges itself depending on where the mask is.
Exactly. So you could do that, and then something else you can do if you double click. Let's see what I want to do. Oops. Okay, if you double click on the thumbnail, you get this dialog box right here, and you can erase, you could get rid of this. You could tell it, hey, I want the layer mask to hide the effect. Watch what happens when I click this little checkbox. Notice notice that the stroke didn't get erased from everything, only the area of the mask. Okay, so you could hide the effect or show it, hide it, whichever one you want to do, depending upon the effect that you're trying to go for, by selecting this layer mask hide effect. You can do all something similar for vector mask as well. Now, what else can you do? Let me turn this one on because I like it on. I kind of like that better. Okay, so you could do that. Now, one other thing you could do is double click on, I clicked on the thumbnail. Now I'm clicking on the mask itself to get the mask property. You can adjust the opacity of the mask right here. So, and this is with any mask. Notice I'm addressing the opacity, and can you guys see it's changing right there? And by the way, notice at the bottom here, this little thing right here goes from, watch them go way over here. That's white. I mean, what does white do? Completely reveal, right? If I go midway, I get gray. Gray will partially conceal, partially reveal. And if I go all the way to the other way, it's going to be what? Black, right? And remember what black does, right? It will, black conceals, white reveal. So black will conceal pixel, making them transparent in that area. How cool is that? And then you can feather a mask. Okay, so if you click here, notice I can do that and feather the edges because remember, it's a bitmap image, right? So I can feather. Now you can't feather a vector, right? So if you had a vector mask, you can't feather a vector mask, but because this is a bitmap mask, you can feather it to your heart's content, okay? And so you could do that. And you could do some other things. So you could, there's a lot you can do with a layer mask. And if you learn a layer mask, all other masks basically operate off the same principles, but the key though is knowing what they show, hide, or protect. And that's gonna help you, but they all do the same thing. I'm telling you, they all work basically the same way. You create them the same, you delete them the same for the most part. You can see them the same, you can disable them. All the things you do, 90% of it you can do with every mask. The only difference between the other ones in my 3-hour training that I'm developing is that they show, hide, and protect different things. In this case, it was show, hide, pixels. You guys know about pixels, right? Let's look at another example. This is an easy one. Okay, this is a classical, I love classical examples. Chopin, classical examples I love. Of what we call thinking outside of the box. Now notice I have an image here. I'm gonna just turn this image off. And then I have a TV image below it, right? So what I wanna do is I wanna have this key, this image coming out of this TV almost like it's 3D, right? But the problem is I can't see behind it. So what can I do? I know Tom knows. I'm gonna adjust the opacity to go behind the scene to see what it means. That's a Chopinism, by the way, one of my raps. I'll go behind the curtain and see what it's certain. Okay, so you could adjust opacity because I need to see what I'm trying to trace. Okay, so now I'm gonna use my pen tool. You're familiar with the pen tool, and I'm going to draw the areas that I want to mask, create a mask from, a layer mask from. So I'm gonna start here, and you guys see what I'm doing here. I'm gonna click here, and I'm not gonna be perfect about this just for the sake of time. And then I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna Control Z, and I'm holding on my key, and I'm come up here. We'll do that. I'm gonna come way down here maybe, and I'm gonna bend it like that, and I'm gonna bend that, and then I'm gonna just go here. And I'm not being perfect about this, so bend that a little bit maybe. Control Z. And let me see which way I need to go. I need to go down here. and I need to go over here. Okay. So I got what I want to come out of the TV. Now, what I have is a path and not a selection. Okay, so I need to convert this path to a selection. So I'm gonna right click and do make selection. Click OK. Now you see that, you can see a selection right there. You guys see that selection going? Now I can add a layer mask to that and watch what happens when we hit the layer mask icon. Voila. Now I'm gonna bump up my opacity back up so you can see this better. And look, voila, I got that thing coming out the TV of sort, right? A very classical example to show you the power of the mask. Now, all of the examples that we have done thus far, we have never destroyed the original image. None of the image in any of the examples that we've seen, we never mess with a single pixel. You talk about pixel perfect, right? We've never messed with a single pixel because masking just shows and hide, never destroy, but it shows, hide, or protect what is being masked. And there you have a classical example. You see, I see it everywhere, you know, where you got stuff coming out of other objects, right? As the case can be. Now, you could go in at any time and use your brush tool, and you can add or erase from the mask. So I can use my X key to toggle back and forward, see, and I can add or subtract as needed. If I need to add things back, I just toggle back and I can erase or add as I want to. You know, if I made a mistake, let's say I made a mistake there, I hit the X key and I can add it back. And then I hit the X key again and I can take away.
Perfect. Awesome.
By the way, if you want to, just a good trick to learn, which I love time saving. Anything gonna save me time, I'm on it like chicken on a June bug. If you hold on the shift key and click, and then click again, let me do it right here. If you hold on the shift key and click, you're gonna draw straight lines, okay? And that can come in handy. For example, let's say I wanted to make this a straight line. If I click here, and then click right here, see that? Bam. Got that without much fuss. Because a lot of time I can't draw a straight line to save my life. Okay, but if you click and then click again, hold on the shift key, it's going to draw a straight line and literally erase everything in between those two clicks. That is a real important technique that you need to master. And then you can go back to the brush tool and then kind of erase whatever you need. You know, you can clean things up. Maybe you want to get rid of that if you wanted to, you know, again, or you can add it back, whatever you want. And I'm basically painting on the mask. Black conceals, white reveals. And by the way, when I hit the X key, you notice I'm toggling between black and white. That's the reason why I can add or erase, because I'm just changing from black to white. And knowing the rule, black conceals and white reveals. Now let's look at one other one for good measure. Okay, now this is a small image, but I meant to probably need to do a bigger image, but I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing better. Now, again, it's gonna be pixelated because it's at 500%, but you get the understanding what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I have an image of I think it is an iPhone, right? And you can see it has a little glare right there. It's banded because this thing is zoomed in at 500%. So what I wanna do is create a layer mask for this phone without much fuss, okay? And one good way of doing that is, again, always start with a selection. 90% of the time, you start with a selection. Okay, so let's make a selection. I'm gonna use my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm gonna draw just a selection, just a rough selection like so. Now I'm gonna go back to this other image that I have right here, and I am gonna turn this off so I can see this image. And I'm gonna do Control A, Command and Control A, that's select all in most programs, right? I'm gonna select all the pixels, because this is a pixel, if it was a vector, it'd be all vector, right? But Control A in most program will select all of whatever the program is. If it's 3D, it'd be all 3D. If it's Word, it'd be all words, right? If it's Excel, it'd be all cells in Excel. How you like that? All cells in Excel. That was fresh off the press there. Okay. So now that I have all the pixels selected, I'm gonna do an edit copy, go back to this image, and I'm gonna do an edit, not paste, because if I did paste, let me show you what happens if I do just a paste. If I paste, bam, now by the way, that's a really big picture. It just pasted in that, on top of everything. It's just on top of that image. I wanna paste it into that selection, okay? And automatically, again, my favorite word, right? Automatically create a layer mask for me in the process. How cool is that? Let's see how that's done. Okay, so what I want to do instead of paste, this is what you got to remember. I want to do edit, paste special, paste into. That's your key right there, paste into. So watch this. Bam. Now, again, that's a really big picture. So I need to do Command and Control T to do a free transformation, right? You guys know about that. And then I need to do a Command 0 because I can't see the edges of this transformation. Can't see its handle, so I'm gonna do 0, Command and Control 0. You see what it does? It shows me where I can see the handles. And then I'm gonna scale that image so I could, scale it to whatever size I want, and then move that picture into place like so. And then we'll double click. This is how you commit, you can click it up here, or you can, several ways of committing it. I just like to double click. Again, I'm gonna double click, drag and drop type person. So I'm gonna double click to commit it, right? And notice it automatically, how you like that? Automatically created a layer mask based off of that selection and put it in there. How cool is that? Okay, and then you can add a, let's say you want to add a linear dodge. Let's see right here, I like that one. So I can maintain my, you see right there, I got my little reflection going back on again with that linear dodge blend mode. Remember, the blend modes is used to simulate lighting effects, right? So, and you can experiment with those to find out.
Cornelius, can you zoom into the picture so we see it larger?
Yeah, I can indeed. Again, it's going to be pixelated, but you kind of get, so you can kind of see the reflection now, right? That was part of, let me just turn the mask off so you can see it. Yeah, you can see, I could really see the pixelation in it because this is at what, 700%. So that image was rather small. Now this picture of the girl is big, but that phone, I just happened, I just grabbed it off the internet when I was doing this, not paying attention to the size. So I need a bigger image for this example so it doesn't pixelate on me when I'm trying to demonstrate it. And then we'll do a shift in that again and pop it right in. And by the way, you can always move that image in there, right? So again, make sure you select or deselect the link, and then you can move that image, or maybe you could do Control T again, and maybe you want just a bigger image of a face instead. You can do whatever you want. And then you can double click to commit. Again, you've never destroyed that image, right? If I hold Shift key down, and if I double click on the hand tool, or the magnifying glass, which again, this is a real small picture, you can see that that image is still intact. And then if you want to delete a mask, you just drag it to the trash or the cupcake, right? And hit delete, and you're back in business, and you can see that image is still there, and that image is still there. Any mask you use, you will never, and I love this, you never destroy any pixels. Okay, now you could do the same thing we did without masking. You could just erase everything. But the problem with erasing, like we saw in one of the earlier examples, is you destroy the image, you save your file, you open it back up, you're not gonna get those pixels back. Okay, but when you use masking, you never destroy the original image. And as a Photoshop user, beginner or advanced alike, you should always strive to create non-destructive, I know you guys heard that term before, non-destructive content. I mean, anything you do, that's what you should strive to do. That's all I have. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions or comments, Cornelius, but I would be happy to let other people ask questions first if you want.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Well, if you,
Anybody?
anybody could just
Was that clear?
unmute their
Was that
mic and start talking. So
Yeah, was that clear as mud?
I have no questions because you were so clear.
Okay, well, that's good. That's what I strive to do.
You accomplished it. Thank you. Great presentation.
it was an awesome presentation. So I wonder if you don't mind, go back to your example number 2, the magazine cover.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted you to show the non-destructiveness of what you did, the mask you made to that swirling little thing. So I just want you to shift click on the mask to show that it's still there, right?
Yeah, I turn off all the masks.
Yeah, there you go. So that is, I love that part of your presentation where you see, because it is non-destructive, which is what we always want. So if you turn the masks back on again, you will see that you get the effect without, crushing the pixels. And you should probably, to your videos, this is a friendly advice, you can add that little disclaimer. You said, like they do in movies, no pixels were harmed during the production.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna add that.
They say no animals were harmed.
I like that. I'm gonna use that, Tom. No pixels.
Maybe you should do that.
What was that again? No pixel was home at the.
No pixels were harmed during the production of this video.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Well,
that's cool.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you for that.
No, I love this, and the non-destructiveness is awesome. And my second comment or question would be, I'm not sure if you want to zoom in at the bottom left of this image a little bit, where her foot and the
Right here?
yeah, just zoom in
Okay.
a little bit down there, zoom in and
Okay,
scroll down to the, because you did mention that masks are black and white, but also grayscale. And grayscale, as far as I understand it, is like semi-transparent masks. So
Right.
if you wanted to work on this to make it a little bit more natural, you see that the, the little parts of her
Right
dress there at the bottom. Yeah, like, no, I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about this right here.
Yeah, or even more further to the left of the spiky
right here.
heel. You see, if you, I think, and this is a guess, I'm not even sure if it works, but if you were to edit the mask for this particular layer, that will be for the model layer, the mask on the model layer. It's not selected at this point, but if let's say you choose like 50% or 40%.
Now let me balance. Let me talk about, and again, this is another training in itself. And I purposely stay away from gray because gray.
I understand.
You can use. Now, what I could do, let's do a few things. Just, I know we're up against the clock here, but let me see. First thing I would like to do is with my eraser tool, make sure the mask is selected, and Control Z. Okay, maybe I just want to, I guess.
Oh, yeah, fix that little thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, Control Z. Maybe I want to erase that, right? Now, what you was talking about is, let's just do a quick select. Let's see if I could do, again, I'm gonna select the image, right? And then I'm gonna do a quick select of, let's just say this little part right here. Okay, you see that?
Just make it semi-transparent to have.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is,
yeah,
I'm gonna go to my mask and I want to paint with a shade of gray.
Exactly. Awesome.
Okay.
So let's hope
now what you don't want to do is do opacity and change the opacity, because that causes a problem when you paint.
That will affect the whole mask.
So you want to do a shade of gray. Now notice I'm on a mask, but this time I'm painting with gray. You guys see gray? So now when I paint with gray, I don't know if this is going to be obvious.
Or you need to switch tools. You're still on the quick selection tool.
Oh yeah, I am. So I need to go to the brush tool. I know why is that not working. Now I could paint over here, nothing's going to happen. Why? Because it's outside of the selection. Golden rule again, only what's selected.
It's affected.
Affected. So look, I'm painting right here, and
Oh,
now
man, that's exactly what I was aiming for.
Okay.
The semi-transparent mask, you know?
yeah, and I probably do a lighter shade of gray. Now, if you look
Yeah.
closely,
The cool thing is
that
you have manual, you have control as an artist, you will have control over those things. Yeah, that's
you see that gray was added to the mask. So typically it's black and white, but you can use gray too if you want to show semi, keyword there, semi-transparent.
and you said yourself that this is a topic of a future presentation, and that's awesome. Let's make this a mental hyperlink to that presentation, and I can't wait to experience it. So thank you so much for that.
But that, again, like I'm saying, this is one of 8 different masks that I talk about. I could talk about all the different. This is one of literally 8 different mask types that I'm gonna be I'm creating content for. But bottom line is, if you can remember that black conceals, white reveal, you can go a long way. Okay, and then remember to make sure that you select the right thing, because a lot of people, the right layer, number one, because a lot of beginners, they select the wrong thing. And then make sure you select the right thing. You might select the thumbnail or the mask, or you might have to unlock them, you know, to move one or the other, right? So if you remember that, and they all the masks, believe me, because I've been using this for 20 years, I guess. And I used to fumble all over this, wondering why this stupid thing, one of those moments not working. I know y'all never had those moments.
Never.
Right? But, you know, once you master this, it can become fun, because I tell you, you know, when I discovered, like, you know, turning on the selection for the model and I could erase without having to figure out the edges, man, that is a big time saver. Any other question?
Oh, it's hard to top this presentation. It was awesome. But can you do one last thing for me? I just thought about it. If you go to the light streak layer and select the layer, the pixels,
okay,
and reduce the opacity of just a little bit. Just reduce the opacity a little bit.
Turn it down, you want me to?
Turn it down, yeah.
Okay.
Just a little bit. There you go. I think if it is a light striking thing, whatever makes that thing, I was just struck me that you want a little bit
Yeah,
of
that in fact that helps it make it actually, because you want to be able to see through the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that'll work.
That was just a detail that struck me.
I'll add that to my
Or you
note.
might blur it.
What do you say, Karen?
I'm saying he could also blur it.
Oh yeah.
Because right now it
awesome.
has
Yeah.
a very
and the cool
distinct
thing is
edge with the pink edge. But if you can blur it or select it and then feather it.
Yeah,
you
you
can
can do
blur
that.
it. You can blur it non-destructively in a number of different ways.
Yeah, again, you're only limited by imagination what you can do.
So you've inspired us. You're getting all these suggestions.
Oh man, Cornelius, this is awesome.
all
And
good.
I, as always, I love you.
So but before we go though, what did y'all think about my little 4-minute trailer?
Oh, we loved it.
I liked it. It's great.
You should go back and read the comments we made in the little
Oh
chat.
yeah, I hadn't seen the comments.
No. Let's can somebody make sure we save those comments for the
Yes,
future?
they'll come to me and I'll
Awesome.
save them.
That's wonderful.
Oh,
Because
y'all must have been doing a lot of talking, huh? I see there's 52
oh, yeah.
something in there.
No, that was actually, you know, the way you explained layers in that video is the way I've dreamed I could do it. I only dream about being able to explain it that way. So I do it when I teach. I do it in stills, you know, but it, you know, it's nothing like the animated version that you did. So that really blew me away. So thank you so much.
Not a problem, not a problem. I'm seeing if there's any questions in here. I saw the trailer. Okay.
I don't think I saw any questions in the chat. Sherry was taking notes of things
Yeah,
that you said and
Sherry's
writing a
really
lot.
good at, yeah, she's good at doing that.
So how about we all pitch
Shall
in
we conclude
and
the-
buy a microphone
So-
and
so-
headset for Sherry and Sam?
Who is this right here? Who is this M. Ray
Who is what?
right here?
He says he's a former student of yours.
I can't see it.
Okay,
Did we have another participant here in the
Yeah.
middle that I didn't notice? Oh, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, and I welcomed him in chat and he said.
oh, I
he
think
was
that's Mary. None of this.
Cornelius's.
All right.
What was that?
No, I wouldn't know, but I would honestly, I'm so grateful to Sherry and Sam for being so good and loyal participants here. So I think we should all pitch in and buy them a headset with a microphone for each of them. What do you
Yeah, that would be good.
think? I'm just joking, but I mean, we can do it, right? So,
Yeah.
so
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I like to have fun, when I'm doing this.
sure.
Okay. I'm going to stop the recording, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.